Hello, everybody. How's it going? Hope everyone's having a fantastic Valentine's Day. I had all of my mixing up my words. I had all my Valentine's Day celebrations yesterday, so tonight I'm here with all of you, giving you a little bit of fun for this evening. And deciding to mix things up a little bit, instead of just going straight into Final Fantasy V like we usually do, and believe me, that is still coming tonight. We have a Valentine's Day special for all of you. Now, what does that entail? Well, let's just say that there are a lot of well-known and a lot more lesser-known couples throughout the entire Final Fantasy franchise. I went ahead and grabbed a huge list of them. I think we have a list of 46 different couples from throughout the entire franchise. And we are going to make a tier ranking list out of them. Why? Why not? Because it's Valentine's Day. Why not rate other people's relationships? These aren't all canonical relationships either. Do keep that in mind. I mean, some of these are just popular fan pairings, or pairings that never quite came to be. So with that in mind, I kind of set things up with a tier maker and got it all plugged in. So actually, this is actually available on tiermaker.com's website. So if you wanted to come join along and make your own tier list to compare, like where you think they all should fall, let me see if I can drop a link here. The link is in the chat. Feel free to join along and see what you can come up with. So, with that bit of business out of the way, the other bit of business I need to talk about is the fact that this is going to be it for streaming this month. For the next 2 weeks, next 2 Tuesdays, 2 weeks in general, I won't be streaming. I'm going on a vacation with my fairly extended family. We are going to be all of us are going back to Disney World for the first time, well, for the first time for most of them in 10 years, as well as for the first time for my niece and nephew, who are 3 years old and 6 months old each. Yeah, pity my sister. Luckily, other than that, it's going to be my mother, who was not able to enjoy Disney World last time, because the first time she had ever been there, she had to have emergency surgery 2 weeks prior to the trip. So she was still recovering from that. She had my elderly grandfather, who has since passed, to look after. She didn't get to do much of anything. So we're giving her a big vacation and everything like that. And so that's where I'm going to be for the next 2 weeks. Technically, I'm only going to be there for most of next week, but I come back right on Monday afternoon-ish, and so I'm probably not going to be quite in the headspace after that vacation for streaming. So I'm just going to go ahead and take the next 2 weeks off, and then we'll be back. Those of you who follow along on YouTube are happy to know that there will be new videos, or the edited versions of our live streams, still going up on Fridays. Those are all pre-done, already in the can, ready to go, just scheduled. So, the YouTube channel will continue to be updated. And it's just going to be a little bit of a break from the streaming. With all that said and done, I think it's time we'll hop over and check out this tier list. Get started here. Oh, wait, I should probably let people know on Twitter that we're live, huh? Join us in making of all the different Final Fantasy couples. And pop the address in. Oh, there we go. All right. There we go. So, this is our list. As I said, I think we've got like either 45 or 46 different couples here. You'll see a lot of repeated names, just namely because there'll be situations where they'll be like, here's one character. There are about 5 different characters that person can be shipped with. I'm in particular talking about Cloud. Because I included every single possible iteration of the Gold Saucer date that I could think of. As well as a bunch of weird pairings I remember seeing throughout the years on the internet and things like that. Things that, as I said, aren't necessarily canonical, some that aren't necessarily the first things that pop to mind. But I've got a huge list here. So why don't we just start going down it and seeing. I've actually got them all arranged on here, starting from Final Fantasy I all the way through 15. Big point, this is all just mainline Final Fantasy stuff. We don't have Legends or World of Final Fantasy or a bunch of the spin-offs. Do keep that in mind. I just tried to grab the mainline series here. The other rule I put in place when I was coming up with these was for Final Fantasy XIV, I wasn't going to include the Warrior of Light. Just because if I did, I'd have to create a bajillion more of these things. Just so you would have the Warrior of Light paired with every conceivable NPC in the game. Because, yeah, everyone ships someone in that game. And I didn't want to necessarily have this list be 99% Warrior of Light X someone else. So, no Warrior of Light pairs. Although I was tempted to make a special exception for Warrior of Light's Fists X Xenos. Because, I mean, that's an OTP right there. So without further ado, let's get into the Valentine's Day festivities and start figuring out who everybody... shrunk my window. Who has the best romance in all of Final Fantasy? First things first, we have Jack and Sarah. Technically not Final Fantasy 1. Technically it's Stranger of Paradise where these two were put together. But I wanted to have a Final Fantasy I representative, and since all the Warriors of Light are just random people in that game, I wanted to have something, and they did kind of make it a whole big thing that Jack and Sarah, Princess Sarah, who is a canonical character in the first game, had kind of a fling going, romance, interest each other, at least at one point in the Strangers of Paradise timeline. That being said, it's really underdeveloped. You get like maybe 4 or 5 scenes. The big problem with it is that when it comes down to the pair, most of the development is done in other timelines, and you just get to see flashes of, oh look, they had more of a relationship before. Not anymore. And because of that, it's kind of like this one of those things, like, you're not really sure what their relationship stands at. It comes off as fairly average, maybe even a little lackluster. I'm kind of tempted to put it as either C or D tier, and I'm kind of struggling on that one, because it's bland as milquetoast, really. As I said, it's you get like 3 scenes of it where she's like fawning over Garland Jack, and then like a scene where they listen to Jack's iPod. Stranger of Paradise is a weird game. For those who haven't played it yet, or don't plan to, it is a very strange game. And yet completely like 90% canonical fits in with Final Fantasy I. I mean, it's very clear in the closing credits of Final Fantasy I that it's an isekai situation, so... With that being said, since there is no payoff to it, the romance doesn't go anywhere other than Garland, I guess, kidnaps her at the end to go to the Chaos Shrine. I'm going to put it as a D. Next up, we have Firion and Maria, who I couldn't remember for the life of me in Final Fantasy II if they actually ended up together or anything like that. I think the closest you ever get as anything with that is the fact that Maria kind of dances with Firion at the ball scene towards the end. But ultimately, I don't actually think they're even canonically paired together. Maria spends most of the time harping on her brother complex. So, that being said, I mean, it feels like the only reason they're together is because if it's like the only 3 people you have to get to know it is Firion, Maria, and Guy. And no one's going to put the big hulking man-child with anyone, so you're kind of stuck shipping Maria and Firion. And, well, of course, the other character being Maria's brother. So, no, we're not going to ship those 2. So, it just feels like this is more of like an obligation type ship, where it's kind of like, you know, I just want them to feel like you've got a good pairing there. You got something. But ultimately, no, it just doesn't come across, honestly. F tier. Hands down. There's no meat to the bones. There's nothing really there other than, like, if you really felt the need to latch onto something, which is weird because, I mean, there is fan art of these 2. I found it. I found quite a bit of it. I went with this picture because this actually looks like Amano's artwork. I don't know if it actually was Amano's artwork of the 2 of them together, but there are people who ship them, and there are people out there who like to see these 2 together. Because I guess you have to have something. On the opposite side of that, we have from Final Fantasy III, we have the Onion Knights and Sarah. I have to be very kind of weird about this one because the Onion Knights in 3 all speak in a single text color, in a single text box. They're never given individual, they never speak by their names. At least not in the originals. And in the Pixel remasters. In the 3D remake, they each got names and personalities. But in the original, they were just interchangeable Onion Knights. That you could give them names, but really the only names only come up in terms of giving them different names on the menu screen. But other than that, in like text boxes and everything, they just talk, and it's never made clear who's talking, even when they're talking to each other. It's confusing as all hell. And it drove me nuts when I was doing the voices, because I had no idea if this was a conversation between multiple of them or anything, because there's 4. But You also meet Princess Sarah, not to be confused with Princess Sarah, spelt differently, technically. And she makes it no hesitation on her part through the course of the game, and especially at the ending, that she is interested in one of multiple Onion Knights. It's not 100% clear if she's open to a kind of a polycule relationship with the Onion Knights, or if there's one in particular she has her eye on, other than she likes them. And this is good because earlier in the game, at one point, you have the chance to rummage through her underwear drawer in a very awkward moment in the game when you're looking for things. So, I guess it pays off because it turns out she's probably cool with it. She seems very assertive in that sort of way. I mean, she takes the initiative and says she wants to come with you, instead of going back home. So, this is honestly probably one of the more interesting things where, like, the protagonist has no interest, or, you know, as much interest as you possibly want to give them into this sort of thing. She's putting her foot down. No, we're dating now. So, I don't know. It's kind of a fun dynamic that you don't see very often in video games, especially when you have near silent protagonists. So I'm actually going to put that one on a B tier just because it's one of those things that kind of sticks up as kind of one of the more interesting ideas that I've come across in the Final Fantasy series so far. Next, we have yet another installment from Final Fantasy III, the one other couple that ended up capturing my heart through the course of the game. And I'm now just realizing I left one out. There was one between one of the side characters that temporarily joins your party and a random girl who I can't even remember the name of in one of the towns. That would have been maybe D tier if I had remembered to put it on here. But I honestly, it goes to show you, I completely forgot that those two even had a thing going on, because it comes up all of like twice. But instead, I have Mr. and Mrs. Sid. And her name is Mrs. Sid in the game. I think, according to the wiki, she actually has a different name. Like, she actually has a real name. But in the game, they always just refer to her as Mrs. Sid. They are adorable. Like, every scene with them is just fun. They look like they're just an adorable old couple who have had just a happy marriage. They're still in love with each other. They still have a ton of fun just being together. Inspiration for all of us out there, really. A tier, no question. Sid and Mrs. Sid. You inspire us. With that leaves out all of our Final Fantasy III relationships. And, we still have quite the ways to go here. The next ones are a couple of canonical relationships from Final Fantasy IV. There's not really a lot of, like, ambivalence to this. I was tempted to put Kain and Rosa on the list, but that felt more like a plot device than a relationship. Lower than F tier, really. Cecil and Rosa, on the other hand, are kind of an idyllic pairing, if we're going to be honest. They're childhood friends, grew up, fell in love, stay together. She follows him to the ends of the earth and beyond, against his will, just because she doesn't want to leave him and stop being by his side, especially when he's going into his, darkest hour. It's the classic, like, fantasy romance. That being said, I honestly don't get it on a lot of ways. Cecil and Rosa are nice together, but I don't... Especially where Cecil starts in the story, I never could quite follow why Rosa was with him, other than they were childhood friends. Like, they grew up together and got together and everything like that. So, with that in mind, I don't know why she stuck with him when he was a Dark Knight. Like, you think that would have been like, oh, you're going and committing war crimes? That might put a strain on your relationship. But it doesn't. And because of that, I'm still gonna put them as a B, because it's not quite there yet. It's still got some kinks. Not those kinds. Maybe those kinds? Don't know. We'll have to see. The next is, speaking of kinks, Edge and Rosa. Or, actually, why did I put Rosa? Oh, I screwed up on the title. It's Edge and Rydia. I just screwed up on the text, and my bad. I was kind of in a rush on a lot of these, trying to get this ready for this idea, because I just had this idea to do this stream like 2 days ago. But Edge and Rydia. Okay. I have been on the record in saying that the whole thing with Rydia does not bother me. Yes, she is a literal child at the start of the game. But by the time Edge meets her, she is not a child. She went to the Feymarch and grew up and trained and became a young woman. This isn't a thing where, oh no, she skipped through time and now she has the body of an older woman. No, she aged in a place where time moved faster. She still lived out all of that time, all of those years. Granted, if it was anybody else, it'd be a little bit creepier because they actually remember her when she was a child. Edge never met Child Rydia, which is also probably the only reason he's attracted to her. This whole thing still comes off as creepy to me. Especially since it's incredibly one-sided. Edge constantly pines after and kind of has just like this really, really, really kind of like milady kind of mindset towards Rydia. Whereas Rydia, honestly, just seems like she could just take it or leave it with Edge. She doesn't really have any interest one way or the other with the guy. At least for the most part, it seemed like. That being said, I mean, they're a nice contrast pair to Cecil and Rosa. Because they're kind of dysfunctional. But I'm going to put them on a D tier just simply because of the fact that I don't necessarily see this as a functioning relationship for a myriad of reasons. Metatextually, it still feels ick. In-game, she does not care about this guy at all. There's no relationship here. It's just him pining after her from a distance. And, like, in letting that whole obsession engulf his personality, like, at points. But, to contrast that, how about a nice, somewhat dysfunctional sitcom couple? Yang and Yang's wife. Again, in the game, she is referred to only as Yang's wife. She does not have a name. Apparently, according to the wiki, her name is Sheila. I don't know where that information comes from, but that is apparently what her name is. discounting the fact this couple I like. I like Yang and Yang's wife. They're funny, they're energetic, they seem to like each other enough. They're kind of like almost like Sid and Mrs. Sid, but then there's a whole plot point about the fact that Yang is hanging out with a bunch of literal fairies in the Fey March. And you have to get a frying pan from her to smack Sid with, or not Sid, excuse me, Yang with, in order to get him to come home. It's one of those like sitcom tropes that you see that always never sat well with me. The whole like, oh yes, use violence against my beloved, and he's messing around behind my back, and this, it's just tired, and I'm gonna have to go a C couple. It really drops down the whole thing for me, because the first time you meet them, I like them. At the end of the game, I like them, but there's this whole bit in the middle where it just like, I don't know. It just drops the whole thing down, in my opinion. Next, we have the pair from Final Fantasy V. Bartz and Lena, or Bartz and Ferris. Ooh, who will win the heart of fair hobo adventurer Bartz? And I can tell you, there is a clear winner in this. I don't know if it's canonical or not. We have not finished Final Fantasy V yet. But I can say that in terms of amount of being able to find fan art to use for these, there is a metric ton of Bartz and Lena. And next to nothing of Bartz and Ferris. Which is weird, really. Because I can tell you right now, like, on my list, Bartz and Lena are cute, but completely mid. There's really nothing there other than they've got more personality than Farian and Maria. It feels like there's, like, some bludgeoning romance. It's just wailing on each other. Now, some budding romance early on in the game between Lena and Bartz, but really, I mean, what do the two have in common? Nothing. Lena is a princess. Bartz literally wanders around without a permanent home, going wherever the wind takes him, and he likes that. For that reason, honestly, Bartz and Ferris makes so much more sense if you're actually looking at the two individuals. Ferris is a pirate. She travels around the world, going wherever the wind takes her. Bartz is the same thing, but with a chocobo. Those two getting together, I could see having some great fun and adventures together. But in the end, especially, I mean, if you compare it to Lena, Lena is just, she's got obligations. On top of obligations, she wants to have those obligations. Like, the only reason she never goes back to Tycoon is because she feels that she has larger obligations that must take priority. In fact, actually, when they go back to Tycoon eventually, she stays. She stays until X-Death nukes the castle. Ferris is the one who leaves and goes and joins Bartz on his mission. Not to mention, I mean, in terms of a if you want to go with physical attraction, the game makes no secret that Bart's and finds Lena, I mean, not Lena, but Ferris, incredibly attractive. Like, multiple times it has come up. Even before he knew she was a woman, he found her incredibly attractive when she was sleeping. She's, there's a whole scene about it. So I think that makes the more sense, really. All right, moving into the territory of games I have played more and are more familiar with the stories of. Final Fantasy VI. First up, Locke and Celeste. I am going to make something of a hot take here. I don't get it. Like, at all. Don't get me wrong. Totally see why Locke has a thing for Celeste. Never in my life understood why Celeste had an interest in Locke. Just, it never occurred to me. Like, why? Because ultimately it came down to it, and she has little to nothing in common with him. I don't know why she would find any sort of, other than the fact that he saves her at one point. And really, if that's all it took, there are, I mean, why didn't she never get with Leo? Or, I was going to say Kefka, but Kefka. It just never made sense to me, like, why those two got together, because, like, I never got Celeste's side of it. I never saw why she found Locke so attractive, other than, like, sheer charisma and good looks. Because, I mean, you think I found out that you're keeping your ex-girlfriend's dead body in a basement may have killed the mood a bit. But no, they still end up together. And I never got it. I mean, I'm gonna put it on D. It's not a complete failing of relationship. There's just a lot of, like, things that just don't make sense. You want to talk about something that really just makes zero sense, though, and I see these two shipped a lot. Edgar and Tara. What? Why? Edgar flirts with her very early on because he flirts with everything. Tara is borderline asexual. She doesn't understand love as an emotion. She doesn't get it. It doesn't make sense to her. That's her entire story arc. Ultimately, she finds out that she can feel love not through romance, but through familial love in a found family. She still never ends up having romantic feelings for anyone. She is the textbook example of an Arrow Ace game character. Like, and that's a thing for her. That's not even like, oh, it's Arrow Ace because, she doesn't have... No, the plot is about the fact that she does not have any sort of sexual or romantic feelings towards anyone. And it bothers her because she feels it makes her not normal. And eventually she latches onto family love. It's a very different feeling, but no less valid. And because of that, this whole thing never made any sense to me. Someone explain it to me. I'd love to hear the argument for Edgar and Tara getting together. Because it seems to go against everything else that goes on in that game. I can't state it enough. It does not compute. Does not compute! Now, getting into the ridiculous amount of Final Fantasy VII ships. We have, of course, the iconic one. The iconic two, I guess. Cloud and Aerith. Flower Girl, Bodyguard. Match made in heaven? I mean, I get it. Don't get me wrong. This is not one of those things where it's just kind of... This is not an Edgar Terrace situation. This is absolutely... I get why people pair these together. In fact, the entire Disc 1 storyline pretty much supports these two getting together. Except for the context we get elsewhere? Like, we know Aerith is still pining for her, for Zack. That whole relationship never kind of cemented in a closure for her. And as such, there has to be some of that bleeding over onto Cloud. Cloud, on the other hand, essentially has latched onto a wounded puppy. He wants to take care of this girl. She's too pure. She's a cinnamon roll. Too pure for this cruel Midgar. And I will say, one of the things I love about the Final Fantasy VII Remake is that it actually does show you that, yes, Aerith is very much a scrappy slums girl. She cusses. She knows how to take a licking. She knows how to dodge through and weave through, climb over roofs, get around just, the junkyards. She knows what she's doing. She's lived there her whole life. And they're cute together. They are. I mean, especially since she's very much... And if you actually look, and we're going to get to this in a bit on the list, but if you look, this is very much the prototype of what we eventually see with Rinoa and Squall. In terms of... So, I mean, there's good, solid evidence that it works between the two of them. That being said, I don't think it works. In the long run, I think that they would not get... They're essentially attracted to each other for all the wrong reasons, and there's just no solid footing for a relationship there. There isn't. He's kind of just looking to protect her, and she's kind of looking for a replacement for her ex. Not a solid foundation of anything long-lasting. And if it wasn't for the fact that she, I think the whole thing would have fizzled out if she had not died. I'm just going to say it. That being said, they are cute. They do work well together. I'll give them a B, honestly. I will. Because, I mean, they're cute together. I just don't think it would be, if she didn't pass away, it would not have lasted. There would have been more issues with the fact that just came down to the fact that she wasn't... I don't think he or she was quite looking for what the other was. I think they were looking for what they wanted and not what there was actually there, to put it frankly. And for the record, if you find yourself in this, I always ask in a relationship, are you happy with what the person is, or are you in love with what the person could be? It's a good question to ask yourself. Now, on the dysfunctional side of that relationship, we have Cloud and Barrett. And I know you're thinking, that's just a joke thing from Gold Saucer. Yes, it is. But you know what? I wanted to give this one some thought. I wanted to see and think about and see if we could figure out would these two actually work together as a couple? Maybe they would. You don't know. Maybe. I mean, Barrett's got a lot of cinnamon roll qualities to him. Except he doesn't have to, except he's kind of like, he's a big snuggly teddy bear in terms of his daughter. But he's also a proven fighter. He's kind of this weird, take half of Tifa and half of Aerith and squish them together and make him a big scary man with a gun for an arm. And that's Barrett. And I could honestly see, like there's definitely some solid, like, Merc Dad flavor going on here. Like, Barrett and Cloud are very protective of Marlene. They go out and do jobs, but then they come home and make sure, Cloud helps her do her hair. Barrett tucks her in and reads her stories. I think it could be cute in terms of just a thing. The only thing I think would be stopping it, really, is, one, I'm pretty sure both of these guys are straight. There's, always fan fiction. You never have to assume anyone is straight in fan fiction. But also, just Barrett does not have the patience for Cloud. Because especially when they first meet, like, Cloud and Barrett get to know each other. Cloud is easily just a complete, stuck-up prick, honestly. And Barrett does not have the patience. And can you imagine what happens throughout the course of that story? Do you think Barrett's going to be there with him? To have his back? I don't think so. I mean, post-game, there's the orphanage whole thing that comes up in Advent Children, but I could see them doing something there, but at that point, I don't know if Barrett would want to stick around and put up with Cloud. Barrett is too good for Cloud. I'm going to say it. So with that in mind, they're nice, but it's going to get a D. Just because I don't think it's meant to be. And I accidentally bumped the C tier down. There we go. Speaking of the people who have Cloud's back, though. Here you have the complete optimization, if you will, of a formula we've seen throughout the course of this whole thing. You want to take a little bit of Cecil and Rosa? Dabble in a bit of Locke and Celeste? Oh? How about throwing in a little bit of, Yang and Yang's wife, even? Mix it all together? Poof! Cloud and Tifa. Without further ado, I'd like to announce our very first S-tier couple. Why? Because they are childhood friends who have had each other's back since, have kind of a stable thing going with each other, have an understanding with each other, actively care about what happens to each other, And in the end, they're the two that are, they've got each other's back through thick and thin. Honestly, I could see them growing old together. I could see them being happy together. I can see a firm foundation for them to build a relationship on. When Cloud lost his way, it was Tifa who got him back on his feet. When Cloud was about to die, it was Tifa that went and fished him out. Cloud, on the other hand, always there when Tifa needs something. Went to go save Tifa from Don Corneo. Helped out Avalanche when she needed, an extra hand with it. Or as the Team 4-star guys like to put it, do her a solid. They just worked well together. And there was never a moment where I could sit there and go, no, it doesn't make sense why they wouldn't end up together. No, it just did. It always made sense to me. And I know that's a controversial take, especially since the rival party of Cloud and Aerith, very hard. But I think it works. Speaking of things that don't work, how about Sephiroth and Aerith? This is, I don't know if anyone even remembers this from way back in the day. This was a very popular fanship. Like, back when the game was new. And I'm guessing it's because, oh man, Sephiroth, he's like an ancient. And Aerith, she's an ancient. So together they can continue the ancient species. Which always really said something to me about the game. Because if you actually have played through the game and understood what happens in the game, you know that Sephiroth's not an ancient. He's not. So that, I don't know, it's like they would get together and then they would, I don't know, I don't know what they would even talk about. I want Mother to bring about the new age of this world. I don't like your mother. I put it on there because I remember it being a very popular fanship, but I honestly just don't get it. F tier, man. F tier. Next is Vincent and Lucretia. I'm putting him in D tier because it's not completely broken, but I honestly I don't know anything about the two, really. And this maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's because I haven't played through Crisis Core yet, or haven't played Dirge of Cerberus, which, if the answers lie in Dirge of Cerberus about how these two ended up together, I'm never going to find out, because I ain't playing that game. Crisis Core I'll play. Dirge of Cerberus, no. But there's just no meat or potatoes or a plate. There's a couple of optional bits that kind of imply that Vincent was obsessed with this woman who worked at Shinra, and she was Sephiroth's real mom. And Hojo was also there, which just makes the whole thing creepy, because anything with Hojo makes things creepy. Next up is Zack and Aerith. I gotta say, they're cute. This is the ideal pair, isn't it? Cloud isn't Zack. He never will be. But that's who Aerith loved. Them together And especially, Zach's kind of a goofball and everything like that. I totally get it. I see them working out great. Aerith's lighthearted and fun. Zach is kind of a goofball. Good pair. Cinnamon rolls together. Ultimately in an oven? Because they both die? But good pair together. I like them. Who do we got next here? Oh, it's Irvine and Selphie from Final Fantasy VIII. A tier. Hands down. They are the most functional and adorable and super happy couple in that entire game. And that is a game with a lot of dysfunctional people in dysfunctional relationships. But Irvine and Selphie? I mean, it does a great job explaining why the two would be good together. Why they got together now. Why they have a chance at making it. There's no point in that story where you feel like these two are just kind of like, why? Final Fantasy VIII has a lot of that, though, really, when you think about it. Final Fantasy VIII is almost primarily kind of a romance plot. Romance takes up a majority of the kind of the motivations and plot beats and things like that happen throughout this thing. It's probably the strongest character connection between a lot of these people. So the fact that there's some good romances in there does not surprise me at all. On that note, Laguna and Julia, even though the fact that they are a very small, part of the plot, and they do not get together, you still get the feeling, just from that one night they had together, they shared a really solid connection. Once Laguna got out of his shell. But I think ultimately, the thing that brings it down in terms of relationship is the fact that there's a power dynamic issue there. He's a fanboy of hers. You're never going to have equal footing in that relationship. And you kind of feel bad for Julia in the end, because she ends up with someone that she quite honestly doesn't really love either. And it's really just more so a publicity marriage. Whereas Laguna and Rain here is a much more kind of just an equal partnership. It just, the whole thing always came off as a very healthy relationship. She was there, and she's there for him, he's there for her, they make each other happy, and there's really not much more to it than that. There's no, they don't know each other, they don't have, they never grew up together and everything like that, but they found each other, and in a part of their lives where neither had a lot going for them, both kind of had reached kind of dead ends in their lives. And they found each other, and they made each other happy. And I think that's really sweet. I was, during the ending cinematic of 8, when he finally proposes, Laguna finally proposes to Rain, I tear up. It's really sweet. And I want to skip ahead a few on the list here, because I really want to talk about this now after we've talked about the two other main ships. Because this is where I get controversial. Skull and Renoa are C rank. Maybe D rank. I know, they're the big canon. They're on the cover of the game together. They're the symbol in the icon of the head of the title. But no, Why do these two even like each other? He looks like he's constantly irritated with her. She looks like she's not all there most of the time, if I'm being honest. Like, she is the definition of his manic pixie dream girl, and he doesn't even look on board for that. Why did these two become such a big thing in the game? I will not understand this, especially in a game where you have so many more couples that make sense. The only couple that makes less sense than Squall and Renoa is Squall and Renoa and Cypher. And I think that's alluded to in the plot, but it's been fleshed out more in fan things. That's again, same as Sephiroth and Aerith. Why would those two end up together? Like, if Squall is disinterested, Cypher is downright hostile. And I cannot see him in any point in that game putting up with Renoa's antics. Ever. Why would they ever date? Let alone ever, go beyond a date or two. It would be a disastrous first date, and then they would never talk to each other again. Let's be honest here. Why those two ended up as kind of a pairing, or even implied, like at one point before she met Squall, she had a little fling with Cypher. Why? How did that even get started? I would love to see an entire light novel written around Renoa. For some, the logic. Give me a Midnight Sun, or whatever the heck that Twilight from Edward's point of view thing. Give me that about Cypher and Renoa's relationship, because I am vastly curious exactly what thought process has led into that. I mean, at least with Squall and Quistis here, which is, again, a power dynamic issue, as she is formerly his teacher. Granted, same age. But she was a teacher. He was a student. Even if they're the same age. Not good work. Not to mention the fact that she wasn't a good fit for him either. Because he's just so insular in his little, world. It's not till, the adventure happens that he ultimately crawls out of that. And even then, I mean, Quistis wouldn't have helped. Again, she wouldn't have the patience. I think she was just looking for a bit of fun at the beginning of the game. I don't think she was even looking for anything long term. I think if she just saw her opportunity, because it's like, oh, well, I'm not your teacher anymore, you've graduated, want to fool around? But I don't think she was looking for love. Just never got that feeling. The only thing Quistis really loves is card games. Yeah. Why did I make a Quistis triple triad one on here? Moving into Fantasy IX, we have Zidane and Garnet. I like these two. It's one of those things where there's kind of, they help each other grow. They help fulfill that opposite missing piece of each other's lives through the course of the story. And in the end, they're just really good together to the point where it really shines. There's something special there. And it's good because, it's one of those things where it's a canonical pairing. And because it does make sense. All the pieces are set there. They're solid. I don't really have much more to say about that. It's just, they're cute together. They work well together. They help each other grow as individuals through the course of the game. Steiner and Beatrix, however, are going to be solid C ranks just simply because I don't get it. They're both knights. And I mean, they kind of have googly eyes towards each other at different points, but for the most part, I mean, let's be honest. This is the sitcom situation again. Beatrix is the Lois Griffin to Steiner's Peter Griffin. You're going to sit there and wonder, like, why did these two get together? One is completely competent, and the other one's a complete doof. And why does she end up with him? Because, like, I don't know, it just feels like she's... I'm getting back pats from my wife. I feel like I'm going to be sleeping on the sofa tonight because of this opinion. But that's the way I feel about it. I mean, it never was one of those things that just... And then you have Kina and Vivi, which I didn't even know was a thing. This one actually came as a recommendation from my wife, because she remembers this from the game. I apparently completely skipped the part where they can get married. And apparently some people have taken this to the logical extension that all of the little Vivis you see later on at the ending are Kina's children? I don't know. I can't even recall a single time that these two had a conversation together. So I really don't get how Kina and Vivi would, other than a stint to get into a village, would actually have any sort of long-lasting anything. Are they even capable of reproducing with each other? To have those children? One's a... Well, that's spoilers. I don't want to really get into that. But yeah, that's just... What? And then you have Fratley and Freya, who... Again, I have to say, I'm feeling ashamed here, and makes me look forward to my eventual playthrough of 9, because I don't even remember these two. But apparently that's... I mean, my wife had to remind me that there was, you know, who Fratley was and everything, and I do remember it being there, but I think it says something that they were I completely forgot that was a whole thing. Honestly, middle of the road then. Because, honestly, I just completely forgot. Next are the joke ships from Final Fantasy X. From those who don't know, Final Fantasy X has a little hidden relationship mechanic, kind of like with the Gold Saucer dates in 7, where depending on your choices and your conversation choices and who you talk to and how you have in the party more, you can either have more affection with Yuna, Riku, or Lulu. Ultimately, it only affects one thing, I think, in the game, which is who rides on the snowmobile with you? With Titus? Not you, Titus. Which is why the pictures from Riku and Lulu on this list are both... from the snowmobile cutscene. Really, they're the only ones there. Titus and Lulu? Lulu? Let's face it, way too mature for him. She's not gonna put up with Titus's crap. That's an F tier right there. She is just, no. Because, as we'll get here in a second too, she has another dumbass that she ends up hooking up with, and I don't get that one either. Titus and Riku, on the other hand, honestly, I kind of see making a lot of sense. Like, don't get me... They both have, like... It's because they have, like, the same level of energy. They're both kind of hyper crazy goofballs who kind of bounce off each other in a very pleasant way, where they end up like constantly going back and forth and having, you can see them having a lot of wacky fun together. I don't know if it's long-term goals there, but they definitely would have a fun ride of it. Waka and Lulu, on the other hand, is just like that. F tier. I know, it's canon. They end up together. But that doesn't make any sense. She dated his brother. That automatically makes it weird. 2, he doesn't look anything like his brother. So there's not even like, I see him in you. No, you don't. They look nothing alike. They have the same hair color. Is that all you look for in a man? I don't know. I do know that by reproducing with Waka, you have collectively brought down the IQ of the entire island. Show me one moment in 10 where you're sitting there just going like, yeah, those two are going to end up together. Because it doesn't exist. At best, she puts up with Waka in the first game. In the second game, they're married and have a kid. This isn't like Lois Griffin and Peter Griffin in Family Guy. This is Lois Griffin and Peter Griffin in Family Guy. Except, honestly, if I'm going to be honest, Peter Griffin's probably more capable than Waka. This pairing decision thing that happened always makes me angry. It gets me worked up because it's like, why? How? You clearly know how to write romance. You clearly know how to... You did a whole thing with Titus and Una, which we're about to get into. And granted, I don't think it's the best romance they've ever done. But, you know, I kind of get it. At least from Una's side. I don't really know what Titus gets out of it, other than he sees her as a viable groupie. Suppose we should get into that, too. Titus and Una are a solid C rank. I'm sorry. I know people ride or die on this ship. Titus is a sports star ghost. Una is on a death march. They fulfilled a need for each other when she was at her lowest. This relationship is not healthy. It's not. Titus, I cannot honestly say, is overly, like... The way he treats her is just like the way you would expect someone to treat like a groupie or someone like... I don't think he's in love. I think he finds her attractive. I think he finds her like maybe a crush at best. I don't think he's head over heels for Una. The way he talks and treats her at best shows that he doesn't have an overly invested anything in her world or her quest or anything. He's more interested in, you know, getting with her than getting her to complete her spiritual journey. Now, granted, her spiritual journey turns out to be hocus. Una, on the other hand, I get. She's emotionally vulnerable. She's in a bad place. She knows what awaits her at the end of her journey. And because of that, she latches on to the strange, exciting newcomer who is able to offer some amount of emotional warmth in this dark night. But ultimately, I mean, so I understand Yuna's point of view, but ultimately, these two are just bad news for each other. And the fact that the best thing he does is go away at the end to allow her to have growth, to move on with her life. And then he comes back at the end of the second game because shipper's gonna ship. Followed then by, the supposed early third game script thing that was going to be where it's like, oh yeah, but he came back wrong. Oh, wonderful. That's just going to make things so much better for these two. I just do not. I like Final Fantasy X, but man, do I have things to say about it. And believe me, when we get to that point in our retrospective, things are going to be sad. Moving on to Final Fantasy XII, we have Balthier and Ash, which is a weird one. And strangely enough, the one I like more. I'm not going to sit there and say it's great. It's maybe B at best, because, I mean, it fits, it works. There is, no foundation for it really defined in the game, other than the fact that if you acknowledge the fact that Final Fantasy XII is essentially a giant knockoff of Star Wars, you have the space pirate and the princess getting together. And they do quip with each other very well, like Han and Leia, but she's still kind of getting over her dead husband? Did they ever get married? I can't remember. I want to say they got married in it. But I could see them, there's chemistry. On the same hand, you have Balthier and Fran. Also B tier. It's very clear, they make it a very big point, that their relationship is strictly professional. But, like Balthier and Ash, there's hints here and there of something else going on there's interest. So you could definitely take it to the logical conclusion that the two would, end up together. And they're pirates, they're partners, they've had a long-standing functional relationship with each other, they've got each other's backs, it makes sense. I don't think either of these are great potential romances, but then again, neither of them were really the point. In the end, it came down to the fact that these two are just two possible directions, and I'll be honest, I like them both. I don't think one's better than the other. I think they're both viable directions to take Balthier in terms of getting a relationship. Ash, I could see her, at this point, taking off and joining up with the Sky Pirates. Fran? I mean, she's going to be there one way or the other. And then you have Vaughn and Penelo, who are... I'm torn between C and D ranks, really. Just simply because they feel so obligatory. There doesn't seem to be a point to them having a relationship. Which is weird, because they're the only ones who canonically do. They end up together in Revenant Wings. And I think Penelo is probably the only one who's willing to put up with Vaughn. They're right on the same level maturity-wise. Penelo's got her head on a little bit straight. She's not so high in clouds, but honestly, they're boring. They're uninteresting. And it really kind of almost feels like Penelo's whole romantic thing is just to be someone Vaughn wants to rescue. Which is kind of a Princess Peach situation, which I'm not wholly opposed to the whole damsel in distress thing, but I'd also, do something with it that's interesting. Because here it's not. It's just a reason to keep dragging Vaughn into the plot. So yeah, well, we'll settle on D rank now that I'm talking about it, because... Moving on to Final Fantasy XIII, you have Snow and Sarah. D, C... I'll do these guys at the C. Just simply because... Okay. I make no... I don't much care for Snow. Like, on one hand, I totally get his character. I'm not the type of person who finds the Final Fantasy XIII games wholly devoid of character development. I actually think it's one of the finest examples of character development in the franchise. Because the characters actually develop. And there's growth, and you can watch it happen. And because of that, I find him... I get Snow. I don't necessarily like Snow, but I get Snow. And that's the reason I think this ship works. Is Snow and Sarah are honestly like, it's the White Knight and his... granted, she's kind of a damsel in distress in the first game. She's a crystal. In the second game, you totally see why their relationship works. Like, she shows up 300 years in the future with a completely different guy he's never met before. And he trusts her. There's no, hey, are you getting with this guy behind my back? No, nothing. It's Sarah is his girl. He trusts his girl. If this guy's with her, he must be cool. People could learn from Snow. How often are you going to hear someone on the internet say that? So I get it. On the same hand, there's not a lot of time for the two of them. There's a few scenes in 13 too. Snow's entire motivation is trying to get her back in 13. And in Lightning Returns, she's dead. And it's all about Snow's man pain about not having her and failing her. Which, granted, you spend a couple centuries trying to save someone, and then find out that you screwed up? Yeah, I'd be depressed too. But I'm just going to put it at a C tier there, just simply because there's just, there's just not a lot of meat to it, but I get it. Again, speaking with not a lot of meat to it, Noel and Yule from Final Fantasy XIII 2. Now, the biggest problem with this, and without going too deep into spoilers for the game, is that we meet a lot of Yules. And we spend very little time with Noel's Yule. And because of that, all we have is the long distance yearning thing on Noel's part. Not kind of cringe. Kind of milady-ish. Kind of obsessed, creepy. When we do get some scenes with him and Yule, like where his Yule, they're cute. But there's not enough of that to justify everything else. Made even worse by the fact that Yule and Noel don't really have any interaction in Lightning Returns. All the Yules are hanging out with Caius. Noel is doing something completely different. And in the ending, he gets like a token Yule to take to the new world with him? Which is... He literally got a woman as a prize for winning the game? Which is just weird and creepy. I don't know. Like, the only reason this is not F is because you have those few scenes where you see, like, oh, I get it. I get it. They were, there were 3 people left in the world, and they were 2 of them. And the other one was a guy who was about 20 years older than both of them. Speaking of 20 years older, this one is, for some reason, a very popular fanship, and I'm just going to go right here and just straight up and not even debate this one. It's F tier. Hope and Lightning are F tier. Why? Well, I'll tell you why. Because the only time they actually have interaction with each other, he's a 15-year-old boy. Maybe 16. She is at least in her late 20s. She's got a good decade on him by hands down. There's no part of this that isn't creepy. I know a lot of people have fan art of her getting with him with, like, the older version of Hope from Final Fantasy XIII too. They never meet. She never meets the older Hope. She sees him again in Lightning Returns. He's back being a 16-year-old. Anytime you put these 2 together, it's going to be creepy. Stop doing it. Now we are to our grand... We're in the home stretch here, folks. Stick with me. We're on the 14 ships. We're just going to hit these as quick as I can here. Sid and Nero. Big, I mean, they're cute. I mean, I'm not gonna say. I mean, they're completely like in the minds of the fans. I don't think there's anything solid you can latch onto other than their rivalry partnership thing. But if you wanted to take it as the fact that they were also, lovers, yeah, I could see it. They kind of mesh together as like partners in crime, kind of buddy. Also, rivals kind of push each other back and forth. I get it. No, I see it. I'm going to go B rank on those 2 because I could totally see it. Runar and Ishtola. I'm sorry. They're going S rank. Why? I have never seen a situation in an MMO that has made me root for 2 NPCs as hard as Runar and Ishtola. I hope she finds a way back to him someday. I don't think she wanted to leave him either. I think she knew she had to, but I don't think she wanted to. And I think she would go back in a heartbeat for him. And I hope that we get to see that happen someday in the games. That's all I'm going to say. Speaking of the first, Reen and Gaia. Popular ship of putting them together. I'm gonna get this as an A because, like, it's a cute yin yang thing going there. The real question is if Gaia is going to either Gaia is going to have to be more patient, or Reen is going to have to kind of step it up and mature a little for it to work. But I think there's a great foundation for those 2. I think the quest line for the Eden Raid series is just a fantastic story about how these 2 meet, get to know each other, and there's a lot of potential for them. They're not S tier because they're not like these 2 are destined, perfect. Want to see them. I want to see them together, but they're not quite there yet. I think there needs to be a little bit more growth on one, other, or both parts for them. Thancred and Minfilia. I'm putting this one as a D rank just simply because I struggled with like, putting this in there because I've seen some people, I mean, because this is the big debate, isn't it? Like, is Thancred a parental figure to Minfilia? Now, this is Minfilia from the source, not Reen. Or, like, romantically interested in her. And I always came down on the side that it's more of a parental, familial relationship between the two. But I totally could see, like, Minfilia maybe having a thing for Thancred, but Thancred not feeling the same way back. I don't know there. Unfortunately, we don't get to spend much time with Minfilia. Way more time with Thancred. We know that he is upset that he lost her, but it seems more like he lost... He feels like he failed his surrogate daughter than his, one-time lover. Speaking of Thancred's one-time lover, this one actually is going to... I'm going to put this up here with Nero. Thancred and Urianger. Perfect odd couple. Like, I don't know what it is about them, but the way they interact during quests, during cutscenes and all sorts of stuff, you'd think that they were already dating. It just seems to click. They just have the perfect, like, he's snooty and uptight. He's a little bit dirty. It works. It's like that odd couple thing, but for them it works. There's times that you can easily not get that to work, but as I said, you feel like they're already together by the time you're seeing them in Endwalker together. Urianger and Moonbrita. Oh, wow. I'm going to put it in C rank, but that's only because of the fact that with Endwalker, we finally got to see, like, a post, like, kind of a hint of what his relationship with Moonbrita was like in Sharlayan. And, like, the fact that he was close enough with her that he was pretty much considered family already with both of her parents. Like, to the point where you kind of, like, it feels like people were already expecting them to get married. Like, they had that kind of relationship. That he was in the family already. And I only just wish there was more of that in, like, the actual game. We only get snippets of, like, their relationship in the very short window we get to know Moonbrita. Because she's only around for, like, 2 patches. And then she's out. So, that being said, I'm going to go C rank on it just simply because there's not enough meat there. I feel like they have the potential to be A rank if we got to see more of it. But it's C rank just simply because we never got that. And then Wedge and Tataru. F tier. I know. I hate doing it to my Lullafels, but let's be honest. Tataru only has one love in this world, and that is money. Wedge does not fit in the picture, and he is doomed to forever pine alone and from afar for Tataru. Not helped by the fact that he never can seem to get it out of his mouth like how he actually feels about her. He's just bad at talking in general. But then Tataru, even if he did, I mean, confess to her, propose to her, whatever, Tataru's gonna turn him down. No room in her life right now for anything besides her enterprise. Which brings us to Final Fantasy XV, our last one on the list, and then we're going to take a break, come back with some Final Fantasy V for the night. First up is our canonical couple, Noctis and Lunafreya. D rank. I'm sorry. Were these two together? There are a total of maybe 3 minutes where they are in the same location talking at the same time to each other in the entire game. There is a lot of implied relationship. The fact that they send messages back and forth through encoded means that only they know, that they've been communicating with each other from children. It's lovely. It's adorable. It's heartfelt. But we never see any of that. We get told that they do this. And by the time we get told this, we're on our quest to save the world. And they never run into each other again until, well, untimely things happen. It's one of those things where I'm really sad to put it down as D tier because, honestly, there is a lot of potential to Noctis and Lunafreya. There is a ton of ways that it could have developed, but quite honestly, none of it happened. It's all implied to have happened. And in the end, I'm not entirely sure why they were even, like, together outside of a political marriage. Like, it's implied that there's more to it than that. But we're not given that. And it's a damn shame. It's so much wasted potential there. And our final S tier, the boys. The ultimate bromance. The car crew from Final Fantasy XV. These guys are ride or die for each other. We are shown this time and time and time again. They will do anything for each other. They are the ultimate bros. Is there romantic feelings there? Is there sexual feelings there? There could be. Plenty of room to interpret some of the things that happen. But you know what? Regardless of any of that, even if there's not a lick of it, they are complete brothers in this whole thing. They have the strongest bond of some of the... they have more of a bond with each other than I have seen in entire casts of certain Final Fantasy games. They're unbreakable. From here to the end of the world, the boys have got each other's backs. And that is why they are the final S tier of the night. And there you have our final rankings for Final Fantasy franchise here. Cloud and Tifa, Zidane and Garnet, Runar Ishtola, and the boys are top tier. Hope and Lightning fans, cut that crap out.